A teacher's scornful reaction almost destroyed a child's confidence, until reality arrived in the form of someone with NASA credentials. During Career Week at Ms. Worthington's third-grade class at Prescott Elementary in Chandler, Arizona, 8-year-old Jalen Brooks could barely contain his excitement that morning. Despite being smaller than his classmates, he possessed remarkable intelligence. His father was expected to visit later in the day. During the morning discussion, when Mr. Denton invited students to discuss their parents' professions, Jalen straightened with pride. With his chest swelling, he announced, "My dad works at NASA." Silence followed, not uncertainty, but disbelief. A classmate snickered. The teacher's response, however, caused the deepest wound. Mr. Charles Denton released a condescending laugh. With raised eyebrows, he remarked, "NASA? You've got quite an active imagination there, Jalen. Perhaps you should consider something more believable next time." Several students joined in the laughter. Jalen fell silent, fixing his gaze on the floor while his sneakers clicked together nervously. His small hands balled into fists against his thighs. Mila, seated beside him, whispered her support, saying she believed him. He acknowledged her with only a slight nod, unable to speak. The morning hours dragged by. Various parents visited the classroom, while Jalen sat motionless, wishing he could vanish into the floor covering. During the lunch period, his sandwich remained mostly uneaten. That single moment had lodged itself in his mind. How swiftly an adult, someone whose job was to uplift him, had dismissed him completely. What Mr. Denton failed to understand was the reality. Jalen spoke the truth. His father served as an aerospace engineer on a Mars Communications Relay initiative and carried his NASA identification daily. Yet in that instant, facts became irrelevant. 3 days prior to Career Week, Jalen had been with his father in their garage. He'd asked, "The rover needs to wait that long just to transmit a message to Earth?" Dr. Kelvin Brooks explained that the delay ranged from 5 to 20 minutes based on Mars' orbital position. Jalen's expression showed amazement. "It's like messaging someone with terrible reception," he observed. His father chuckled in agreement, joking that space connectivity was awful. Before sleep, Jalen inquired whether he could present a NASA folder at school. Kelvin settled next to his son, advising him that he didn't need physical props, just his own words to describe his father's work. Jalen voiced his concern. "What if nobody believes me?" Kelvin responded, "That's their issue, not yours. What if they mock me?" Kelvin considered this carefully before answering that if mockery came, Jalen should maintain his dignity and remember that truth doesn't require validation. It simply needs to be spoken. That evening, Jalen documented everything he planned to share. But those preparations became meaningless when Mr. Denton's laughter rang out. At lunchtime, Jalen destroyed the illustration he'd created, wadding it up and stuffing it deep in his bag. Career presentations were set for the final class period. Jalen monitored the time anxiously, sweating and fidgeting, worried his father might face delays. Perhaps Mr. Denton's judgment was correct. Only 15 minutes remained with 4 parents left. Mr. Denton began, "Next up is," but stopped abruptly as the door swung open. Dr. Kelvin Brooks entered wearing a navy blazer, crisp white shirt, dress pants, and his recognizable NASA badge attached near his chest. He introduced himself, stating, "I'm Dr. Brooks. My work involves spacecraft design." Instantly, the atmosphere shifted. Kelvin approached the front deliberately. He acknowledged Mr. Denton with a courteous, composed nod before addressing the students. "Learning about careers today, I see?" A student inquired whether he piloted rockets. He clarified that his role involved creating communication systems that maintain contact with spacecraft after launch. He simplified it by comparing spacecraft to devices needing phones, which his team developed. "Like iPhones for space?" a student asked. Kelvin smiled, agreeing but noting the terrible signal quality. He displayed images from the Mars Relay project, capturing every student's attention progressively. Only Mr. Denton remained distant and unusually silent. Jalen now sat with renewed confidence. Before concluding, Kelvin paused deliberately. "Incidentally, I understand someone suggested earlier that NASA careers might be unrealistic. He allowed that word to resonate. Looking at Jalen, he added, apparently, some individuals define realistic differently. Then he smiled warmly. Jalen's face lit up completely as Kelvin moved toward the exit. Passing Mr. Denton, he stopped briefly. I trust your students always feel valued, particularly those with ambitious dreams. Following the last presentation, after most students departed, Mr. Denton approached Jalen's workspace. Your father appears quite intelligent. He is, Jalen confirmed. I need to acknowledge I acted hastily earlier. Teachers sometimes err. Jalen met his gaze directly. You laughed at me. Yes, I did, and I apologize. I should have listened properly. Jalen gathered his belongings and stood. Before leaving, he glanced back. It wasn't imaginary. That's genuinely my father. Later that evening, Jalen sat at home discussing the incident. You heard him, right? When I mentioned your NASA job, he treated it like fiction. Kelvin joined his son at the table. I heard. Sometimes people operate within limited perspectives, and when reality exceeds those boundaries, they react with laughter. But you're not responsible for making yourself smaller to accommodate them. I stopped feeling intelligent. Never allow someone else's skepticism to diminish your reality. You understand your identity and mine. That's what counts. You performed admirably today by stating facts and standing firm. That requires courage. The following morning, classmates who'd previously mocked him now sought his company. Mila accompanied him during recess, noting that everyone believed him now. Jalen responded with indifference, saying belief wasn't necessary. Mr. Denton left a written message in Jalen's storage space. The note read, Jalen, my judgment was wrong. You shouldn't have needed to provide proof. Continue pursuing big dreams. Mr. Denton. Jalen refolded the paper, tucked it away in his bag, and closed the zipper without fanfare. The apology wasn't something he required, though perhaps the teacher needed to express it. That afternoon, Jalen departed with confidence, not because his classmates' opinions had shifted, but because certain facts remained constant. His father had appeared as promised. He worked as an engineer. Most significantly, Jalen had spoken truthfully despite facing disbelief. Truth requires no authorization, only someone courageous enough to voice it.